Hey guys, if you are like me, this monument was probably more of an actual junk rather than junkyard, because there is not much loot, the green card is bugged, and the crane used to consume way too much low grade. So it was more like this friend who keeps bragging about himself, but in reality is just another rascal. However, since the crane has received a buff on the controls and low grade usage, I decided to give this monument a test and was actually surprised with the results. If you run past this monument with your friend, you should get more than 500 scrap worth of loot in just under 4 minutes on average. So how does this work? Well, there are two parts to it: the loot from the crates and car scrapping. By looting, you should be able to find up to 10 crates in here that should spawn in these locations. So if you run in the pattern shown, you should be able to loot them all in under 2.5 minutes. Due to the knowledge from my previous videos, we can assume that one regular crate yields 26.2 scrap on average, so 262 scrap should already be yours if the monument was not looted. Then we come to the second part, driving the crane. The monument spawns from 2 to 9 white trucks, which you can toss into the hungry metal monster. The monster then eats the trucks and shits 50 scrap and 50 metal fracks, the so-called miraculous diarrhea. After I teach you how to drive this crane, you should be using around 10 fuel per truck on average, but this can of course vary a lot, depending on where the cars spawn. Normally they spawn along this road, so I recommend driving on it back and forth until there is no more food for the metal monster. After the feast is done, collect your spoils and be on your way. If you are a solo, this all may take you about 6 minutes. But if you are a duo, one person can drive, the other loot, and you will be done in less than 4 minutes. Almost as quick as your typical date. Not like you have any of those of course, but we can pretend. To step up your game, you can also use this as a treadmill. So there are two ways to control the crane. Either by moving it all or just moving the arm. When holding shift and pressing WADS, the crane will be driving around. If you're not holding shift, then you will just be spinning around and moving the arm. In order to drive straight, make sure the little blue light on the right is on. If it is not on, then you can move it back to the starting position by holding Ctrl. Once you are in front of a white truck, release shift and pick up the car by lowering the arm with T and S keys. By pressing R, the magnet will be toggled on. Lift the arm back again with W and right mouse button, so it doesn't hit anything, and drive the crane back while holding shift. I prefer keeping the crane always lined up in order to drive it around quickly, so I tend to hold the shift key almost all the time and just use T and right mouse button for the arm. This monument technically should also have a green card and diesel fuel, but the green card that should be here is almost always bugged, and in practice it will probably never spawn. The diesel is also quite buggy, so you might find a barrel or two around, but don't put your money on it. You can also bring modular cars that spawn on the road and scrap them as well, getting 75 scrap for 2 module and 125 scrap for 3 or 4 module cars. But since this is too time consuming, it is not worth it in my opinion. So if we now put this monument on a ranking board for scrap per second, you can see that even running it solo is better than going to the metro with a primitive kit, and if you run it as a duo, it is even better than some of the blue monuments that I have tested. Now, the next time you run past Junkyard, consider giving it a glance, and thank you for watching.